Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Parker. I'm a professional makeup artist, and today we're going to be doing a date night look. This is a really easy and wearable look that is still very sultry. I feel like it really emphasizes the eyes, still gives you some really glowy skin, pretty blush, but is not too overwhelming where you feel like a cake face. So let's just get right to it. Thank you for watching. Let's get started. First up, my skin is already prepped, but I'm gonna go in and add some of this Wellda Skin Food. This is their original. And to be totally honest, I bought another one of these recently and it feels like they changed the formula. And I am gonna be so upset if they change the formula, because this is just the richest, most hydrating moisturizer I have ever found. And for my dry skin, especially in January, it is so needed. But pretty much on every client that I have, I will use this right under the eyes. We all have those under eye wrinkles, and this just really helps to hydrate the skin before you put any makeup down. You can also add this wherever else you get any creasing, any dryness. So a lot of times people get it around the mouth or in the corners of the nose. We can always go in with powder if it gets too oily, but we can't take away any dry skin. What I also recommend to really get your skin started in a good place is to exfoliate. And by that, I mean just take a washcloth and scrub all of the dead skin cells off of your skin. That will give you the best skin base possible. I'm also just gonna go in with a little Summer Fridays, so my lips are dry. Before I do any makeup, I like to do my brows first. And I use the L'Oreal Brow Lamination. This stuff is so good. And I like to do this first so that I don't pick up any concealer or foundation in my brows. Also, if you find that you get like little white flakes in your brows, it's probably because your brow product is picking up your skincare. So if you have that issue, just run through your brows with like a makeup remover just to get rid of any of that moisturizer or anything. Because I'm not doing anything crazy on the eyes today, I just want to even out my skin tone, go ahead and get some foundation on and kind of build up from there. So for that, I'm gonna take e.l.f. Halo Glow. This is in the shade 3.5, which is a little too tan for me. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the Armani Luminous Silk in the shade 3.75, which is a little pale for me, and just blend the two. And I really love the finish and the shimmery sheen of the e.l.f. Halo Glow with the the normal finish, normal to dewy finish of the Armani Luminous Silk. So I will just put that mainly on my cheeks, and I am not using a ton. I will really be building up with a lot of concealer and contour and blush and all that. So I don't want to overload the face with makeup. I also think, you know, when you're on a date, or if it's just like my husband or whoever, I hate to say it, but on average, most guys aren't like, her makeup looks so good. I don't want a guy to look at me, a guy. I don't want my husband to look at me and be like, wow, her makeup looks so good today. I want him to look at me and be like, damn, she looks hot tonight. That's the goal. Ugh. When my skin is so dry, I just cannot use brushes. I have to use a sponge to really blend things in. This is such a light layer of foundation that it's barely gonna feel like anything is on your skin. Whatever is left on the back of my hand, I'm just gonna take a little more of this on the sponge and go over any places that I have redness. So that's mainly on my cheeks where I have rosacea. A lot of times around my mouth, but again, I can take concealer around my mouth. So mainly focusing on the cheeks. And I am okay with a little bit of imperfections shining through. Always take it on the ears so that everything matches, and down the neck. Next up, I'm gonna do concealer. I'm using Natasha Denona's High Glam in the shade N2. And I want to not use a ton. It is all about really light layers. So I'm first gonna go in and just do places where I either want to hide some redness or highlight the face. Taking a little under where I'm going to contour. just because I have a little more redness down there. The longer you let your concealer sit, the more coverage you'll get. So if you have an acne spot and you don't want to buy a whole another concealer, just let your concealer set and dry down a little bit more and you'll get more coverage. Also taking the Kosas Magic Concealer. This just has a little bit of like a pink brightness to it. Now on my chin, I really like to focus the concealer just directly down the center of my chin. Because I have a rounder face, I don't want to spread it like too far out because I'm really trying to create that like, you know, more oval looking face versus the rounding looking face. Same with the forehead. I will bring it like up, waiting to do my under eyes last because I want the concealer to dry down there and give me a little bit more coverage. This is using a House Labs concealer brush. So good. And really just stamping it in. Whatever is left over on my brush, I will then take and bring it up in the outer corners. I don't like to put actual concealer there because I just find it's too much product in the places where I get crow's feet. And like obviously more product equals creasing. Then always going back over with my sponge and making sure there's no harsh lines. I also want to take that concealer brush just over my lids. I'm not adding any more. I'm just using whatever is left over on the brush. Adding a nude in my waterline just to open up my eyes. Now I am basically starting on a blank canvas. All of the redness has really been canceled out from my face and I need to add some color back. So I'm going to use the Makeup by Mario. This is their skin enhancer in the shade Light Medium and this House Labs dual-ended brush. And just tap it in. And this is really where it starts to, your face starts to transform. I always add some forehead bronzer. Where you place it really depends on what your face shape is. So because I have a rounder face shape, I'm really focusing it on the sides to kind of keep that lightness in the center of my face to make it look a little elongated. And I always like to really blend it into my hairline so you can't see where it starts and stops. It just looks like I got some sun, I'm a healthy girl. And I'll even go over my brows a little bit because you naturally would hit, the sun would hit that part of your brow. I think there's nothing better than some forehead bronzer. Now let's go to the cheeks. So I like to start like in the middle of my cheek, not all the way to the ear. And just focused on blending this upwards. And then eventually I'll drag it to the top of my ear, getting close to my temple, or other side. Just lightly drag it along my jawline. Personally, I will not put any on my chin because I'm trying to make my face elongated. However, if you have a very pointy chin or you kind of want to make your face look more rounded, more youthful, I would definitely add it there. I'm just constantly going back in with my sponge and blending where it needs to be blended. I'm gonna take a smaller brush and do some more detailed work. Same bronzer, still using creams. I haven't put any powder down on my face. And I will drag this in my outer corner, starting to create the shadow of a wing. It's all these tiny little details that once you bring them all together, they really make a difference. And they make it look more effortless, even though it is so much effort, which is part of the fun for me. And then because my eyes, I feel like, are a little further apart on my face, I will drag a little bit of bronzer into this inner socket. This is gonna basically be undetectable, but it just makes my eyes look a little less far apart. You really want to edit every look you do based off of your own face shape, your own features. And I will drag even a little bit of that bronzer underneath. This is going to make my eyes look more smoky, but because it is such a neutral bronzer, it's not really going to look like I have any shadow down there yet. I'm going to drag a little bit of bronzer on the tip of my nose. I don't like to go down the sides of my nose because I don't want my nose to look any smaller than it is, but you can obviously do nose contour. And then I will also do lip contour. So adding just a little bit of this under and on top of my lips to give them a little bit of contour. It's just gonna help create that shadow, looking like your lips fold over, even when they don't. I'm like, do I want lip filler once I pop this baby out? Moving on to blush, I'm gonna add She's Seductive by Patrick Ta. I am like at pan on this. This is a beautiful, just like neutral blush. I find it flattering on so many different skin types. And it's a great base blush. So I'm really gonna blow this out all over my cheek because it's, again, so neutral. So I'm going pretty far up under my eye just to make it look like the sun has kissed me. And this is using the other side of that Haus Labs brush. Gorgeous. Then I'm going to top it with the Haus Labs Glassy Hibiscus blush. This has been one of my go-to blushes for years at this point. And I am going to top this just really on the tops of my cheeks, not blowing it out quite as much, just because it has a little more color payoff. And this is a beautiful mauve-y pink. So if you are in the cool tone realms, you'll really love this one. Throw a little on top of the nose. Okay, of course, go back in with my sponge, make sure everything is nice and blended. Okay, powder. This is a mix of the RCMA No Color powder and the Ben Nye Pink powder. They both have such a good finish to them. So I'm gonna take a little on a fluffy brush to start. Making sure nothing is settled in my fine lines. And just start with a really light layer. Brush this over the lids, over the brows even, and along the nose. Ah! Oh my god. And then I will swipe a little underneath the contour just to clean it up. Oh my god, I keep getting this all over myself. You can always go back in with your sponge, even over this powder, as long as you are patting and not swiping. And this will kind of bring a little bit of that dewy hydration back. But I am gonna go in with this Pat McGrath pink powder and just press a little bit more into my T-zone. Okay, now I'm gonna fill in my brows just so I can see the full eye shape before I start on eyes. And brush out the brows with a spoolie. This just helps to make them extra fluffy. I feel like my skin looks good, my brows look good. Now it is time to start on eyes. For this eye look, I'm gonna be leaning more into the sultry type of eye look. I want my eyes to be piercing without looking like they're trying so hard. So first gonna take a bronzer just all over the lid. So I am just going truly all over the crease and all over the lid. Blending that into the bronzer that's already on my face. This is just adding a little bit more definition to the eyes. And then with a smaller brush, I will take that same bronzer underneath. Okay. Now I'm gonna go in with the Makeup by Mario. This is the Neutrals Mattes palette, and I'm gonna take this like mid-tone brown right here and using this on this smaller brush. And I'm gonna focus this shadow just like right along the lash line in the outer corner. So I'm just tickling the lash line right here and blending it up. I'm not doing the C motion, like whatever. I'm just focused on the lash line. This is gonna be the start to the like pencil wing I'm gonna be drawing. I always like to go back in with that first brush, make sure everything is blended. And then next up, we're pretty much jumping into liner. So I'm using this Makeup Forever Endless Cacao liner. And I want to use it on a little smudging brush like this. And this is my favorite multi-use liner ever. So focusing it on the outer corner just along the lash line again. And just gonna get some pigment down. And then I'm gonna take my brush and blend it out. So blending this just outwards and a little bit upwards. And I'll start to kind of make that wing. And then I'll take it at an angle and just kind of draw that wing out. Just deepen it up ever so slightly. And then I can always go back in with my concealer brush and kind of just clean that line up. And then next, I want to take it just right in this inner corner of my eye. So I'm kind of leaving the center of my eye open, and that helps to create that cat eye shape. But because this is such a light liner, it doesn't look that dramatic, you know? And I can even take it a little bit on the underneath. So just did that inner corner, the outer corner, and then I'm even gonna drag a little bit right underneath my lash line. So this is making my eye like really stand out, really pop, but I'm not like dragging a black liner in my waterline, which is like the most basic sultry look ever, which is gorgeous, don't get me wrong. This is gonna look a lot more natural, but make such an impact. And I always like to blend with my brush. Okay, gorgeous. Now I want to take that original neutral brown that we used and just going over Endless Cacao. Because it is a cream eyeliner, it is a little more wet than, you know, a traditional powder. So I just want to set it with that powder so it is less likely to move. And I am just using the smallest amount and tickling the lash line again. I want to deepen it up the slightest bit. So I'm using that same smudging brush and I'm gonna use this dark brown shade, and I am just gonna tap this as close to the lash line as possible in that outer corner. And this is just going to deepen the look. Something you could skip if you're comfortable with like the level of darkness that it is already. So, and I'll even take whatever's left over on the brush and just run that on the outer part under the eye. See, now I feel like my eyes are popping. To add this tiniest bit of shimmer, I'm going to take the Dior Backstage palette and just going to mix the gold, the pink, and a little bit of the white. Just get like a neutral shimmer. Sometimes you can add a little more gold, a little more pink based off of your preferences. And then I'm going to just hit the very center of the lid and then even drag that up into the brow. So keeping it in the center of the lid is going to draw the eye towards the center of your eye, and that just promotes like symmetry and is attractive thing to look at, you know. Just a touch more. I'm also going to add just a tiny bit of shimmer into the inner corner. Now I just gotta curl the lashes and throw on some mascara. It is crazy how 10 years ago I would have thrown on like the most dramatic lash with this. But it's just so not my vibe anymore. Okay, this is where I like to fluff the hair, kind of get a sense, a feel for where we're going. You could definitely add like a couple of individuals just on the outer corner. I love these ones from Amazon. They're so baby, and just add like 3 and it would make a difference. But I'm just not feeling like lashes today. I do feel like a smidge pale, so I'm gonna go in with my powder bronzer, just this Physicians Formula, on a natural haired brush, and just brush a little bit more on my forehead and on my cheeks, and then I'll add a little bit more blush as well. Across the nose. Keeping it really light-handed. All down the neck. And then want to add a little bit more blush. When I'm adding a cream blush on top of powder, which I love to do because it makes your skin look so hydrated, I like to do it with a sponge. Again, just that like tapping in motion just helps to prevent any like brush strokes, messing up any of that powder, whatever. You can always go on the back of your hand before you press it to your face and just tap that right on top. This adds such a glossy, glowy finish. It makes your skin look so hydrated and healthy. So just tapping that right on top, over the nose. Then it's about time for some lips. Now for lips, I'm gonna go back in with that Endless Cacao, same liner we used on the eyes, and just contour the lips a little bit more. So just adding right below, directly above. And then I'll take a brush to blend it out. Something like this. This is clean. And after this, like, you could totally just add gloss on top. I feel like, you know, especially when you're on a date, you don't always want to look like you have so much lipstick on, because then you borderline look unkissable. So something like this, just your natural lip color with a gloss, I think is gorgeous. Or taking a blush like She's Wanted, something that has a lot of pigment to it, and just tapping a little bit on the center of your lips to add some color back. This makes a difference. So pretty. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more. So you can stop there, add some gloss. But I have been loving this Smoky Pink by Makeup by Mario. If you ever feel like you overline a little too much, just take your concealer brush and clean it up. Just gonna go in with some gloss, e.l.f. Pink Quartz. This is such a pretty one. And then I'm gonna set my face with the L'Oreal Infallible. Ugh, that tastes so bad. That is my like go-to date night look. It's still, you know, in the neutral zone. It's not too overwhelming where it looks like you have a shit ton of makeup on. It is just really pretty, a little sultry, and it looks so good in person, in pictures, across the table, in a dark movie theater. Can't go wrong. Linking all my products in my Shop My below, but comment below if you have any questions.